Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. The Practical Guitarist Podcast is brought to you by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Great Lakes Guitar Pickups provides fantasy tones at prices a practical guitarist will love. Featuring top-notch construction, attention to detail, and a fully custom product, if you can dream it, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups can probably build it. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Are you a regular listener? Why not? David here reminding you of all the ways you can participate in the Practical Guitarist Podcast. Subscribe using your chosen podcast app. Review us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Practical Guitarist or on Twitter as @PracGuitarist. Support the show. Merchandise is available in our Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. And donate to us via Patreon, available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. Reach out to us directly via email at questions@practicalguitarist.com. Hello, Jim.
Hello, David.
Did you like the earthquake?
Yeah, I saw that. It was terrible. The birds were flying off in the middle of the earthquake.
Yeah, they were flying off to look for shelter and safety.
Yeah. Since the coronavirus has come, I've had to switch beers.
Yeah,
I told you this.
Modelo Negro.
Yep, Negro Modelo.
So he's drinking the dark Modelo. Apparently,
it's actually Negra.
Oh, I thought it was Negro.
No.
Yeah, it's Negra. You're right. That's dark in Spanish. I do know a little bit of Spanish, believe it or not.
Did I ever tell you how I learned the word for beer? Did I ever tell that story?
No, cerveza.
Okay, so I was in cerveza, right? So I was in Puerto Rico, I think, or I was in South America. I don't know.
Is this a podcast appropriate story?
Oh yeah. This one's podcast appropriate.
Usually his stories south of the border end badly.
Yeah, those are ones that are Patreon only. So I was in. I want to say I was in South America, but I'm pretty sure we were right on the equator. I think. Anyway, So we're down there, and because we did our crossing line ceremony and all this other stuff, and I went out for a beer, right? And I had a couple of beers, and the next morning, I don't have to have a lot of beer to look bad the next day. 2 is enough. And
yeah,
so
I mean, he had like one today, and his beard fell off.
Oh my God, it did. It's gone. I'm clean shaven.
It's like it was never there.
So I went to. I went out, had a couple of beers, like I said. Come back. We have a gun firing safety brief that we're doing the next morning. And the XO says, "Hey, Chief, how you doing?" And I said, "I'm all right." And he goes, "You look pretty rough." And I've got instead of coffee, I've got a big old glass of water, and I'm just chugging water down. And he says, "Geez, did you have too much cerveza last night?" I said, "Yeah, I've never had that kind of beer." He goes, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, I've never had cerveza. I've always had beer when I went out." And he just looked at me and goes, "Do you know what cerveza means?" I said, "Well, obviously it's a local brand of beer because that's that is beer, you dumbass." He goes, "That is the word for beer." It took me a few minutes to realize that that there was a different word for beer in South America. I'm 33 years old at this point, maybe 32 years old when this happens to me.
I did the Alchemy Audio pedal building class.
Oh, how was that?
It was a really good learning experience. I learned how to solder again and learned how to solder properly, and actually didn't make a complete idiot of myself. We put together, which is basically a Zen drive, which is like maybe 20 components. 3 different boards, ribbon connectors, the whole shebang to make everything clean and look neat and to function properly. And we did it, and it actually went really smoothly. My build was together in about 4 hours, and mine tested perfectly the first time. So maybe I've learned enough over the years that I'm not a complete moron when it comes to building things and soldering connections. And
I'm only a partial moron.
When I made those XLR cables a couple weeks ago, I reverse the leads on one cable like 4 or 5 times. I just could not perceive to get it right.
Right.
Good Saturday project, not a
Yeah.
good Monday night project. And that was basically what was going on there. But that was cool. They hosted in the back of a coffee house. There was 5 or 6 people there, and it was a good experience. Anybody in the Chicago area, if you like Alchemy Audio's Facebook page, they do post these events, and they do it frequently. I think they do it once a quarter or something.
So do you do this online while they're, or do you go there?
You go there, and
you physically went?
Yeah, Alchemy is here in Chicago, so they
cool.
They rent this conference room in a coffee house,
Uh-huh.
and then you go there and you put together pedals. They bring your kit, they bring soldering iron, they bring all the stuff you need to do it, tools. Which that's another stupid thing. They brought out tools, and I was like, I have one of these, and I'm like, that's just for poking stuff, right? And he's like, no. And then he shows me what it's used for, and I'm like, this is genius. I don't know why I never really figured out what this was used for, but I said, this right here is genius. And I said, this is worth $100 alone. So, and it's only $100. The kits are about $80 on their own. So to go and do it in a classroom setting and actually get advice from the instructor and learn the proper way to do things from a guy that basically tears down pedals all day long.
Right.
Alchemy Audio is famous for their modding and repair business. And they repair all kinds of crazy effects pedals.
Wow.
In fact, I think they've even done some surface mount stuff. So, but oh yeah. So, it's just I my wife just walked in with an iPad to show me something. So apologies everyone. There was not awkward sounds there. I would highly recommend Alchemy Audio's class to anybody who's interested in taking it, especially pure beginners. I walked in, I'd built 3 pedals over a span of 5 or 6 years, and I still learned stuff. So for somebody who's an absolute beginner, this is probably the way to go. And he asked me what I thought on the way out, and I basically told him, I said, in 10 years of looking at forums, I learned more in 3 hours of your class than I've learned in 10 years of looking at guitar forums online.
I think so. Yeah. We've talked about this way early in the podcast. We talked about this. And there tends to be in a forum, there tends to be a person who's never actually had a Stratocaster, who knows everything about Stratocasters, or who has never had a Gibson SG, who knows everything about Gibson SG. They know all the problems. They know everything that went wrong. They know the...
Can I share an SG anecdote?
Yeah.
When I was looking to buy an SG and I was looking to find out information about buying an SG, I found an SG that in a forum, right, on Les Paul forums or somebody like that. And this guy's like, I would never buy an SG because I had one years ago that the neck joint folded on me while I was playing on stage. What?
Yeah. Okay.
What?
What did you have? An Epiphone Special SG? I mean, there is no
madness. That is not even dude. The glue joint is more solid than the wood. That's absolute madness.
That's what I mean. It would have. First of all, what did you have? 25 gauge strings. I mean, you literally had to have bass guitar strings.
Maybe he was bending the neck.
Glue.
You know, that's the only way that can happen. That's absolutely nuts. So you get those kinds of people that are like, oh yeah, you should never buy this because something that never actually happened. Yeah. Don't believe what you read on the internet. Please don't. Stop it.
If Tony Iommi can use his neck joint like this as a bending night after night after night, I'm pretty sure that the average user can get away with that, and the neck isn't going. I'm just saying, you really, really have to pound on that.
There was no neck folding. That was complete fantasy.
Yeah. I'm sure that a headstock has cracked in the past, but
that happens. Right. I was at a guitar store the other day, and they pulled a guitar out of the box and it had a crack in it.
Yeah. I've been there. I've done it.
I'm sure. Can I share my guitar shop story today?
Yeah.
So I went to Good Time Music in Streamwood, Illinois. And I tout their shop all the time. They have excellent customer service. Some of the people that work there are actually in our group. They participate in our community. And I went out there today to talk to Jeff Biesiadecki, who's in our community. Right. And basically just kind of hang out for a little bit. I wanted to. I brought my Kemper. I brought my whole rig, and we were going to sit down and we were going to dial in some patches.
Mhm.
Now, here's the funny part. So I already had like some patches I knew we could play around with, and
Right.
when I got there, Jeff was like, "Okay, let's." We did a couple other things, and then we put the Kemper on, and we'll get to those other things in a moment. But he sat down with me for a minute, and he goes, "Where's your compressor?" And I showed him how to dial up a compressor, and he goes, "Well, how do I control where it's at in the signal chain?" And I showed him how, and he goes, "Okay." He puts a compressor on. He sets it like subtly right after my amp drive, and then he goes into the amp block settings and he turns down the compression there.
Right.
And it was like night and day different. He's like, turn the compressor on, turn the compressor off. Which one do you prefer? My compressor on. And
Yeah, of course.
and it was funny because I'd experimented with it, but my settings were always like more obvious. And I didn't manipulate the compression on the amp block itself.
Right.
So that was a problematic issue. And then so as a result of all that, we were able to just dial in some patches real quick and just kind of mess around with some of the basic settings inside the Kemper to get some things going. And we got it sounding, I would say, like 20% or probably 10 to 20% better just by messing around with compression after the amp. And
Yep.
it was like a real eye-opening moment for me because part of the reason why I think we were getting the benefit we were, because we had a conversation about it afterwards. I'm running into the headrush cab, right? So it's a little 8-inch speaker behind me. And we're kind of like nerfing the bass by bringing up the treble using compression.
Right.
And as soon as we do that, it starts to sound more like a real cabinet, right? Like in a scary way.
Yeah.
And I know Rhett Scholl did his video about this, and I kind of poo-pooed it. I don't know if I did that on the show or if I did that to you personally, Jim, but
I think it was just us.
I think it was more because of the way that he portrayed it as being like, oh, well, this is going to make it like power amp sag. I don't think that's exactly what it does. I think it's more about the frequency balance, which would occur naturally in a guitar amp cab. And of course, we talked about the high and low end roll-offs. He said, and he's right. When you plug the Kemper into an amplifier, you really don't want a high end or low end roll-off. Right. You only want that on the stuff that's going out to the PA. So it was interesting. I some considerations that I have to kind of like wrap my head around in terms of how I'm going to use the Kemper when I go into PA situations. But right. I will say, I mean, that's the kind of customer service you get out there is they're willing to take a product they don't sell and
right.
just kind of walk you through like, how to get it 10% or 20% better, because they know at the end of the day, like when I do buy gear, I'll come there first, and I do. So the other thing is, so we tried the Zen Drive, right? We found it, at least in my opinion, it worked better as a boost than it does as a drive pedal. And then there was one other thing we did, and this is what I really wanted to share. Oh, I got to play the new Mark V, the Mark V 25 10-inch combo. That thing is like a really little cool grab and go combo. Now, your original suggestion that the 10-inch speaker wouldn't work for you, I don't think the 10-inch speaker would work for you.
I didn't think so.
But it's punchy. It in a jam situation where you just need a grab and go combo, like if if you live in the city or whatever, and you're gonna take it to jam night, it's really convenient. That cabinet is so small, like the pictures don't do it justice. It's like the size of a 12-inch speaker. And it sounds just as good as a regular Mark V, but it's got a 10-inch creamback in it. Now, my inclination walking away from playing this was, I'm going to get a 1x12 open back cabinet, and I'm going to put a creamback in it. I mean, that's honestly the 12-inch creamback, I think, is where I'm headed, because that speaker sounded really good in that amp. And it wasn't like what it was missing, I would get from getting the 12-inch for sure. Absolutely 100%. And I probably do the Lone Star cab because it's got a little bit more depth. So it'll be a bigger cabinet, a little bit more depth. It'll breathe properly. And
give it a little more.
It'll be a lot warmer and 3D stereo thing. So I'll share my anecdote, the story that went on there. Cause there's always, dude, I'm always there like 4 or 5 hours on there. So I see something. Every time I see something, I'm like, this either irritates me or I have an interaction with somebody where I'm like, huh? Or something like this. So, and I guess this is me realizing, and I was talking to Jeff actually about it, me kind of realizing that people don't know as much as you think they do. But anyway, this lady comes in and she's got, I don't know if it's her boyfriend or bandmate or whatever. They come in and they got, they immediately go to the counter and they go, "Do you guys have a Mooer GE? I think it's 300."
Yep.
Which serves me
The
as
early
like
one.
is like a modeling thing, right?
Right. The Amore GE300 is like the Line 6 pod versus the
Yeah, kind of.
Helix. Because you
Right.
got the 3000 that's got all the
Right.
bells and whistles.
They're wanting one, right? And so I'm like, that's kind of an odd thing to come into a mom and pop asking for, first off. But
Yeah.
so Jeff politely tells him, he says, because Jeff's a good sales guy. He politely tells him, he says, we don't carry those. We don't have any stock. I guess they have had some Mooer stuff in there before. But he's like, yeah, we're not a dealer for them, and it's really difficult for us to get in what we had before, and like so. What is it you're looking for? Like maybe we have another product that you might be interested in. And she says, well, she's like, I've got a Roland GR55 synth. So she's got a guitar with a synth thing attached to it. And she's like, I wanted to get the Mooer GE3 or whatever, or 300 or whatever it was, because it's got polyphonic synth capability built into the unit. And I was like, I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this conversation. I'm going, what? Like, you're going to trade a GR55 or you're going to shelve your GR55 for a Mooer GE300? Because I had one, right? I had one several years ago. And I mentioned to her, I was like, well, that has a hex pickup. And I said, that tracks really well. I was like, in my experience, any of these other synth pedals don't really track that well. Not as well as the GR55 does, because it's got a hex pickup, right? Like it's designed for that. You get a specific like setup that's designed to work with that unit.
Right.
And so as we kind of converse a little bit, and I mentioned, well, Bosch does have some stuff that will track better, like the SY3, which is their compact synth pedal, and the SY300, and then the SY, or the SY500 rather, and then the SY1000, right? And Jeff knew a lot more about the 1000. Of course, we were talking back and forth about that and kind of like giving her an idea of what those are like. She goes, well, but none of them do regular amp modeling. Mm-hmm. And Jeff goes, well, actually, the SY1000 does.
Right.
But he says, I think there was some caveat, like it has to be through the 13-pin cable. And he asked her kind of like, I don't know whether he asked her or came up in conversation, but she basically said, like, I just want to get cables off the floor. So I'll come back to that in a minute, because that's going to come up. So the interaction continues and everything's positive. And the guy that's with her says, I just got the head rush and like, it's great. And I cleaned up all the stuff on the floor, and I used to have this Mason Boogie thing and like a 2x12 cabinet, and I'm tired of lugging all this crap around. So I kind of snicker, and I'm trying to keep my cool, but I'm like, you're a musician. You're going to have to carry some gear. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to get out of it. You might lower the amount of gear you're carrying. And he kind of looked at me funny, and I said, well, my rig's sitting over there. And I said, I'm using a modeling rig. And I said, I still have a road case. I still have a guitar. I still have a bag full of pedals, or not pedals, cables. And I said, sometimes I take a pedal board too. And I said, on top of that, I got a powered speaker. And in a true gig situation, I'd also have a 1x12 cabinet behind me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, this is kind of weird. So he kind of looked at me. He's like, well, he's like, we can always strive for it. And I'm like, yeah, no, I understand. Like everybody wants to go down. And I said, Jeff here, because he runs an HX Stomp a lot of times, and that's all he's using. I said, Jeff here can tell you all about going to minimalist rig. And I said, we both maintain 2 amps. Like it's another part of the piece of the puzzle or whatever. So, anyway, long story short, the lady comes back, and she's kind of like looking around at some other things, and I mentioned I have the Kemper, and she's like, "Ooh, how's that?" And I explained. I said, "It's really good." I said, "It's expensive." I said I explained it. It models the amp and the cabinet, and like you can make your own models basically. And the guy knew what it was, and like he was like, yeah, no, he's like, my buddy's got one of these, and we play with him occasionally, and he's like, he sounds really good. When she goes, I don't like his tone, and I'm like, wait a minute, like this is where the red flags start setting up. And she goes, and yeah, I mentioned that you can buy profiles that people have made, and she goes, well, yeah, but you can do that with any modeler. And I said, no, you can't. And she goes, no, you can buy IRs. Almost all of them have an IR loader in them now. And I said, that's not the same thing. I said, the IR models the cabinet, not the amplifier. And she goes,
right.
She goes, no, it models the speaker. And I'm like, wait a minute. I walked over to a half stack they had sitting there. I said, it models this, not this. And I pointed at the head, the head and cabinet, like separately. And she kind of backed off at that point. And I think she realized, like, you're treading into dangerous territory with me at this point. And it was just funny because I'm like, it's a cool device, but I'm like, it's not for everybody. It's expensive. There's a lot of parts to carry around unless you get the stage, and like, it's just this whole thing. You got to be committed. And I knew that this was not the product they were looking for, because I'm like, if you're going to go down the Kemper route, you need to realize right now that this is a technology thing. If you think that you're going to sell a GR55 and get something better just because it's going to work out for you, quote unquote, like, clearly there's something wrong here. So anyway, they get, they ask a few more questions, and then they kind of dart out. And I'm like, I just sat there and shook my head. And there were some couple of things in the interaction that just stood out to me about, like, people not understanding technology, not understanding guitar, not understanding guitar technology, like all three of those things. Lack of knowledge about IRs, this whole idea that somebody they know has a Kemper and she doesn't like his tone, so the Kemper naturally sounds like crap.
Yeah, because he doesn't know how to set his
You're an idiot. No, it has nothing to do with that. Like, the reality is this: different profiles, totally different sounds, right?
Right, that's what I mean.
Well, no, it's not that he's not setting it up right. He doesn't have the right stuff.
Or he has a profile that sounds like,
but that's the right stuff.
That he likes.
It's digital stuff, but it's still stuff. Like, the whole point is this: like, it's a platform, and you can make the platform do various things, and you can't act like, because you heard this one guy's version of the platform, you're going, oh, that's crap. That's crazy. That's absolutely nuts.
Well, that's like saying, one guy had a Marshall, then I don't like any Marshalls.
Yeah, it's like, actually, I think the better example is, like, one dude has a sampler, and I don't like the way it sounds. Even though, just use a different set of samples. Like, what the hell? I mean, it doesn't.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's being generic. Right. It's being generic about one thing. It's like somebody asked me, I can't remember what it was the other day, and I said it was one of the my fellow employees who works over Keys, and asked me about a type of guitar, and then about in general. So it was like, I think it was like PRS, and then asking me about a specific model of PRS. I go, well, that's kind of like, that's like asking me about a fish and then saying it's a trout, and then it's a rainbow trout.
Right?
We can get more and more down in the weeds. So it was pretty funny. I mean, I had a customer come in, and they asked me a similar question. I said, he comes in and he says, can I get for about $60, $70 something that will emulate a cabinet to make the guitar sound better? I said, yeah, you can get the cab driver. No, that was just the other day.
Oh, okay.
It was like last night.
Behringer makes a direct box that does it.
Yep.
There's a bunch of different things.
Right. And so I said, right. I said, I can put a cab driver on order for you. And he goes, but we didn't have anything in stock that was that. And he goes, well, I need it right now. And I said, well, buy Helix. You buy Helix LT. You can buy Stomp, Helix Stomp. And he goes, that's not $60. And I said, no, it's not $60. I said, what you want is an IR. And he didn't know what an IR was.
Yeah.
And he didn't know what a cab sim was. He didn't know why his sound was like ass coming straight out of his distortion box or whatever.
And you know what?
Right into the
I don't have
Yeah.
any problem with somebody who has like the ignorance.
No,
to it.
no, I don't.
And
No,
it comes
no.
in and asks that question. This
Right.
person knew what they wanted, but didn't really know what they wanted. Like
Right.
they had already decided in their head that like this is what they were going to do, and it's like I can't wait to see the look on your face when you realize your GR55 is usable, but that is not. Like
Right.
that's what I'm thinking in my head. Like you're crazy. Because here's
Well,
the
we
deal:
get to
the GR55 is a $650 to $800 product when it came out.
that's right.
And that was without inflation. Today it would be $1,100 or $1,200. Okay, and that they gave you the pickup, the GR55 synth, the 13-pin cable, all the adapter
Oh my
hardware. Like it was an
God.
all included thing, right? And that was I had one. It was like $800 when I bought it, right, or
Those
$700.
things are incredible. We've
And-
got one in the store right now. Yeah.
Yeah, so flash forward to like today, and somebody's like, "Well, I have that $800 piece of kit, and I'm just going to buy this $300 replacement and hope it's as good, and just replace it."
It's
You're
not
out of
going to
your
do.
mind. You are out of your mind. You have a professional level piece of equipment that you're going to trade off to get something that's like amateur at best.
Yeah, that's kid in a bedroom practicing with his laptop. That's what you're going to. I mean,
Hey,
when you said the GR55, it didn't click with me. I'm like, we have a guitar, we have a Strat that's got the pickup in it, and then the customer must have traded the Strat and the GR50. So unfortunately, they're sitting separately. So nobody's like seeing them together and going, "Oh, I really like that Strat and I like the GR50." They're not seeing the two, and it's you know, and I know that when you buy the Strat with the pickup built in and the GR55, even used, that's a lot of money.
yeah. I've been looking for a Synthexis guitar for several years now at a decent price, and I haven't come across one yet. Keeping my eyes peeled for a Godin SG, was it LG XT SA
Yeah.
or whatever?
Yep, LG XTSA
Yeah, because their Synthexis
or
guitars
something
are
like that.
pretty good, and
XTA.
it's got a 13-pin out. But anyway, she was talking about trying to clean up cables on the floor, and I'm thinking, you have a 13-pin cable that comes from the guitar. The synth has a 1/4 inch that actually runs your guitar into the 13-pin, and then that goes out to the GR55, and then you have two cables that come out from the 55 to one to front of house and one to your amplifier of choice, right? And it splits the
Yep.
guitar from the synth signal. And I'm kind of laughing because I'm thinking about what she just said. Like, I want to go down to fewer cables. Well, even if you go to something like, the Mooer, you're still going to have a cable from the guitar to the box, and then at least one cable coming out of it, and probably another one going to front of house. So it's
Right.
like, how is this fixing any of your problems? Zero. The only thing it's doing is making you believe you have something better.
That's exactly right. And part of it, I just looked it up, by the way. It's $1,300 if someone came in and bought both parts, the Strat and bought but it's a Strat with the pickup loaded. But anyway, you can buy the pickup separately. I know. Anyway, what I was getting at is this: the dangerous part is, and I was just seeing it today on one of these YouTube channel things. If a YouTuber makes a good enough sounding demo of the GX300, somebody's going to believe that the GX300 is going to sound like that in a band setting on a stage, and it's that's where we've talked about that 100 times. You cannot assume that just because it sounds great in YouTube channel A with player B, that it's going to sound great on stage. Your computer that you're hearing it through, your cell phone or your AirPods, is not what you're listening to it through. You don't have the band in the mix. You don't have any of that, and you don't have your playing and your preference for tone in
Yeah.
that.
I don't know. So the other, with regards to this calamity of a sales discussion, not because of the salesman, but because of the people that were involved. I'm gonna completely out myself here because I'm gonna say something that people are gonna like flip out on. But if I were in her boat, all I would be looking to do is mounting the GR55 on a board with some smallish modeling device for guitar and on like a newer modeling device for guitar, even maybe one of the Zoom things, just so that I could get some new functionality, mount it all on a board, 2 cables in and out, be done with it. Like, there's no reason to go through all these shenanigans and try to find a new synth pedal if you have a GR55 with a 13-pin. I was talking to my wife, though, and I think I know what her real problem is. 13-pin cables are hard to get. And I have a feeling she's broken a few, and they're not cheap. And so she's probably sitting there going, I wish I could just use a 1/4-inch cable. Which leads me to another thing. She thinks that she's going to go buy live wires and have them last forever. But obviously, if you're breaking 13-pin cables, you're probably stepping on them, running them over with casters and everything else. So you're going to have the same problem. You're just going to be doing it more frequently. And for a cheaper price, which kind of defeats the purpose. Her better option here would be to learn how not to step on your cables and take care of them.
Yep.
that's my guess. That's all I can make sense of it. It's like the Lewis Black joke. If it wasn't for my horse, I wouldn't have spent that year in college. So
exactly.
If you're a Lewis Black fan, you'll know that one. Yeah, that's a great comedy album too. That's the one from Milwaukee or whatever. He talks about like, you, my friends, have managed to turn drinking into an Olympic sport. It's true. So anyway, yeah, we're gonna try not to drop some F-bombs this episode. That's a goal.
We're not going to drop any.
I wanted to address a couple things from last episode. So we had Danny Rabin on. He was great. Had a lot of interesting things to say. Provided some unique perspectives on jazz rock guitar or fusion guitar, depending on how old school you are. And I will say, like, I thought at least portions of it were great. I did want to apologize. There was some political commentary that went on during the episode that I think may offend some people. It was not intended to be offensive, and I don't think Danny has that kind of spirit. I mean, we're talking about a guy that got his way out of joining the Israeli military. So obviously he doesn't really harbor any real ill will towards people. But yeah. So anyway, yeah. If you didn't get a chance to listen to last week's episode, I highly recommend it. I have something I'm going to spring on Jim now. And Jim may or may not know about this yet. So Jim is obviously going to give away the Telecaster with the Great Lakes guitar pickups in it. I have not set a date for the end of the competition, but I'm going to start accepting submissions as of this episode's launch for winning the contest to win this guitar with these pickups. And you'll probably throw the originals in too, I would assume.
Yes, all the original stuff will go.
So here's the contest. Now, normally what we would have you do is record a short video of yourself using your cell phone, nothing fancy, with the guitar you're going to put the pickups in, or tell us what you're going to do with the pickups, even if you don't have a guitar you're going to put the pickups in. And basically, send us a video, questions@practicalguitarist.com, which that email address is still active. And if it's better for you to send it to us via Facebook, you can reach out to Jim and I directly, or the Practical Guitarist Facebook page. Send a message,
or join the Patreon group, and
then get instant access to us. And then
for
send
a whole $1.
Send us this video of you telling us what you're going to do with these pickups, or in this case, what you're going to do with this guitar. And it doesn't. You could say something like, "It's going to be hanging on my wall." I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care.
That's your entry form, okay? And
That's
then
fine.
And then we will maybe we'll take some of the audio from these and we'll put them in an episode or something. I think we're going to try to do a 3-week entry period, and then at the end of 3 weeks we'll hold the drawing live in the Facebook group, and then we'll announce the winner on the next episode, and the guitar will be on its way. That being said, that leads into my next thing. So on my desk here right now, I have a very special set of P90s that I got from Practical Guitarist Podcast. Jim knows. I wound one of these. I wound the bridge pickup, I believe. And I had not installed these in a guitar yet, and there's a reason for it. They're P90s. And for me to install P90s in the pickup mule that I bought, which is a red G&L Legacy, I would have had to get a custom pick guard cut, which was going to be $50, and I would have had to get custom mounting hardware for the P90s to work in that pick guard, which would have been an additional $20 to $30. Okay,
Yep.
so it made more sense to buy a guitar. Now, Jim and I have been going back and forth on this for a while on what I should get, and we were talking about a Gibson LP P90 special, like the bargain basement Guitar Center guitar, right, for like $90 or like I think they're $150, but I could probably find one used for $90, right? And we were going back and forth, and I almost pulled the trigger like twice, and then I was on Reverb the other day, and I saw a Gibson. Not Gibson. What is wrong with me? I did see a Gibson with P90s that I thought about doing. I saw a Godin LG P90S or LG P90. I don't know if it's a P90S or just a P90. But anyway, these were a hot guitar when I first started playing. And I was playing, I had a Godin LG SD or an SDXT. No, it was an SDXT is what it was. I really liked that guitar. I didn't like the pickups that were in it, but I was always looking at other Godins. Like I would drop by other dealers and see what they had. And the P90 one always like stuck in my mind as being the one, if I was going to upgrade, that's what I would have gotten. And lo and behold, I was just trolling around. I actually searched for P90s sorted by price low to high and was just going through the list. And I saw one and I said, no. And it was only $350. So I reached out to the guy and I said, is there anything wrong with it other than cosmetics? I'm going to be using this on our podcast to demo these pickups that we're going to give away. And the guy came back to me and he goes, well, I already have a buyer through Facebook. He's like, if you buy it in the next hour, it might work out. He's like, I'm waiting on the guy. I think he's flaking out. So that was the night of the last podcast when Danny Raven was on the show. So during the show, I'm getting messages from this dude saying, sorry, dude, the guy from Facebook came back and he wants this guitar and we're going to have to pass. So I was kind of ticked off because I'd had approval. And I was just like trying to do the research to find out that the corner radius on the pickups that Nick sent me matched the Seymour Duncan pickups that are currently installed in the guitar. They came stock that way, by the way. And I at some point I just said, screw it, I'm going to pull the trigger. And when I went to go pull the trigger, I saw the message. And actually, you'll notice if you listen to last week's episode, there's a point where my demeanor changes. And it's because I'm like, dang it. Like, this is not supposed to happen. Anyway, a week goes by. I'm getting ready to pull the trigger on the Les Paul this weekend. And just as I'm about to send Jim a text message on Saturday morning, I get a message from the guy with the Godin. And I bought the guitar like within like 20 minutes, and it'll be here tomorrow or Wednesday. So
nice.
Or tomorrow, Tuesday or Wednesday. So yeah, I've got a P90 guitar coming. It's a guitar that I will probably use for Old Stumpy just because it's inexpensive and it's got good pickups in it. I mean, there's nothing more that I need to do to it. Maybe locking tuners, but that's on down the road. We'll see. Very, very cool guitars. I showed it to Nick. Nick laughed. He said, ugly guitar, but they work really well. And I said, yeah, they do. And I don't think they're ugly. I think they're actually pretty good looking, but they do have a bit of an identity crisis. They can't figure out whether they're a Telecaster or a Stratocaster or a Les Paul or an offset guitar. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Godin. Yeah. Godin.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I like the one that you sent me. I like that look at that. That was cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we've been talking all week about something else too.
Talking about a lot of stuff.
So all week long, we've been talking. David is going to part with his 50/50.
Yeah, I'm going to. So I got the black edition 50/50 from Pelican Noiseworks that was made for 60 Cycle Hum. I was happy to give 60 Cycle Hum the money for this pedal. I did have one caveat that we haven't talked about yet, Jim. If you sell this, I want this to come back to me.
Goes to you.
Yeah, so you need to sell it back to me first. but
that makes perfect sense.
But
because he's
well,
so I'm not gonna give anybody the details on it.
Yeah, you're gonna
just to let everybody know.
You're gonna deal.
Yeah, I'm getting a great deal.
Able to try the pedal. Like that's basically what this boils down to. So I'm gonna mail it to him, and if he likes it, great. If not, I'll give him his money back when I come to you in April. Which that's a revelation for everybody on the show. I'm going down to Virginia Beach in April to hang out with Jim for a couple days, and I'm sure there'll be some podcast content that comes out of that. But more or less, I'll just be there to hang out. I'm not allowed to travel on business, so this is not business. Let's make that very clear. I'm going down to, hang out with a buddy. So, cause we can do this podcast from here. Doesn't matter. I mean, we do it every week this way. So, it's just a matter of convenience. I happen to be there. So that's a whole other thing, with the 50/50. I kind of fell out of love with DoD 250s, and it wasn't because of that pedal. It was just like I was into the really gritty overdrive thing for a while, and then all of a sudden, like I started playing modern music and cleaning up my playing, and suddenly I'm not like interested in garage rock or that kind of sound anymore. I have more in common with tones like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and those guys, and all the virtuoso players. Probably closer to Paul Gilbert and Robin Trower, really. But I have like that style more than I do like a gritty overdrive kind of thing. I'm not even using a whole lot of fuzz anymore. I mean, I kick my fuzz on like maybe once a night or twice a night.
Right.
It's not something I like embark upon with the musical journey. And everybody who's listened to this podcast over the last 2 years knows I'm a fuzz guy. Like through and through, I like fuzz pedals. I just don't use them anymore. There's no reason for me to use them. I don't need those nasty sounds in my music. I don't know whether it's I'm changing as a person and I'm not as angry and like virulent as I used to be. But that's just a whole thing that's happened. And so getting rid of a 250 right now, it seems to make a lot of sense. I'm going to use this money to go into some other gear stuff I need to do. Cause I got to get this is another revelation. Kemper, right? I'm actually hoping to take my Mark 525 out this year and start going to open mics and gigs and stuff with it. Which means I got to finish off my pedal board. And actually playing the little 10-incher guy today was like a revelation because it's even though the Kemper, so that was the other thing is like we were doing the Kemper back to back, right? And I kind of, the Kemper doesn't sound quite as good through the Headrush cab but it was passable. Like honestly, it sounded better than like a Katana, for example. And I was pretty thrilled with the results I was getting. So I'm going to continue to like explore both avenues. But I think I have the Mark V, like I have it. I'm going to use it. It's just going to happen. You're just going to let it happen. Okay. It has to happen. It's a requirement. I don't know. So the other thing is like I was telling my wife, my living situation is changing completely. My oldest daughter, who lives with her dad in Las Vegas, is coming to live with us. The next year or two, we're going to be buying a house. Kemper may not make much sense for me at that point. And when that happens, then I can get another amp and get another 2 amps, 3 amps, whatever. And I can start using amps to do the things that I do with the Kemper. I'm not looking to drop. Obviously you're buying a house. You're going to be spending more money on a house than you do a condo. So it's not like I'm going to have like this explosion of money to go buy all this stuff, but it's kind of like, I really enjoy playing amps because I like the simplicity of it. I don't like the inconvenience of it. And especially in my home situation, that's the bigger issue than the playing out situation. I'm getting one of those cars, Jim, the ones that go up and down stairs.
Yeah, good.
Where did you get yours?
Guitar Center.
You guys sell them?
Yeah. They had it sitting out. This one, they just happen to have one in stock. We don't usually. Dude,
you got to give me the part number.
They had them on sale.
You got to give me the part number. I will give you the money to put it in your name and put that feather in your cap.
Cool.
Because be honest with you, like I was looking at Lowe's. Lowe's has got them, but if there's something that's like more gear appropriate, I'll probably get that. And I need to get some bungee cords and stuff because I'm even with the Kemper right now. I still have to go up 5 or 6 stairs to get in the building and leave it on it. It would be nice to have a cart that I can just put it on and then take it in and out of the building. and maybe not even take it with me to the gig kind of deal, but just to have it so that when I have to come in at midnight, I'm not waking up all my neighbors.
Right.
So, but that's a cool idea, man. Those carts that's a godsend as far as I'm concerned.
They're the best.
For anybody who's had to lug like an Ampeg 4x10 or 8x10 up a narrow flight of stairs, like to the 3rd floor balcony of something. Yeah.
You definitely want one that can go up and down.
Yeah. I don't know how people did it back then, man. I just don't.
I can tell you how we did it.
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
2 guys.
Yeah.
2 guys on
He's
both
like,
ends.
Jim's like, I can tell you how he did it as he rubs his back.
Yep. And it hurts a lot lately. Oh my God. But yeah.
Some things were just not sensible. Some things are still not sensible.
No. They're definitely not.
That was a joke that Jeff and I had today, though, was like we were talking about when you see these guys like there's that group Everything Guitar. I guess I should share the thread that got deleted this morning too, which is a whole other thing. But somebody's like, post your rig, and there was so many dudes where you could see both the stairways out of their basement and 4x12 cabinets with Marshall heads.
Oh, good Lord!
That you realize suddenly that like the only people that really use 4x12s are enthusiasts who play in their basements.
That's right. I had did I ever tell you, I was in a band where these guys would bring in, the bass player would bring, I kid you not when I tell you this, the bass player would bring an 8x10 cabinet, and one of the guitar players would bring 2.
Yeah, you told me
this. He
this.
would bring a 4x12 and a 2x12 and a head.
Yeah.
Every week he would drag that down there.
Stack.
They would drag that back up. And
why would you ever do that to yourself with a rehearsal?
I'm not dropping an or F-bomb. So he bleeped my stairwell up so badly. And he wouldn't take it up and out the what do you call it, doors? The big opening doors.
The barn doors.
He had to go through the house. So he wouldn't go through the big barn doors I had on the side because I had a set of stairs.
I would be like, you're going to do that. It's not my problem, man. You're the one that's lugging around a cabinet that's just ridiculously, obscenely large. I had an oversized 412 from Carvin that I think I took out of my house like twice because it was just so unruly. And I finally got to the point where I was just like, I don't even need to have this thing around. I'm nuts. I had a 4x12 cabinet in an 850 square foot condo. I mean, the cabinet took up as much space as my bathroom. Okay, it's like, why would you ever do that to yourself? Because I'm a glutton for punishment. Okay, I learn things the hard way. If you haven't noticed, I tend to learn things the really hard way. I had that cabinet. I had it about a year. I didn't pay anything for it. I think I paid less than a pedal. And I probably made money when I sold it. Because I sold it to Guitar Center, and I think they gave me $200 for it, which I was like, okay, like, sure, take it off my hands. In fact, they were like, well, we don't know if you want to buy the cabinet. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to leave it here regardless. So,
I had a guy do that to me. He goes like this. He brought in a cabinet, and he goes, this was Friday, Saturday. He goes like this. He goes, how much can I get for this cabinet? It was a big cabinet. It was don't ask me why anybody would have a pair of 15s in it. And I'm like, how much? I could not find any pricing for it. It was so old and so not wanted, I suppose. I could not find any pricing. No eBay sales, sold items, nothing on Reverb. And I go, well, I mean, it was real. It was I don't know, not Gens Benz, but something like that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like out of the ordinary, not a brand a brand I had heard of at least. And I said, so how much do you expect to get out of it? He goes, I don't care. I just don't want to take it back home. So when I told him I couldn't take it in, he goes, you can keep it. I said, I got to be honest with you. If I was about 10 years younger, I'd probably take it, but I am not taking that thing home. That is not going to my car. I am not taking it home.
Ridiculous.
I said, you give it to the first kid that walks in here because I don't want it.
I'm looking in the list of text messages because I now know what that text message was about. You asked me, have you heard of this company? And I was like, yes. And then,
oh yeah, that was another one, a 4x12 in that one. It was, what was it called? Rockafort, right? Roccaforte.
Yeah, I've heard Roccaforte.
Yeah, so this guy comes in. That was another one. He comes in with this big Roccaforte, 80-watt custom head and a single channel and a 4x12 Roccaforte with these speakers in it. And I can't tell you how many people have called about it, but I don't think we have it. I think we still have it because I don't think anybody wants it.
I don't.
This is not something that.
I don't think Roccaforte was really seen as.
See, that's just it. He's like,
brand.
He's like, well, Eddie Van Halen built their. I'm like, I don't give a crap what Eddie Van Halen uses.
Is that the company that? I bet it is. That's the company that did the Eddie Van Halen signature that really wasn't an Eddie Van Halen signature. They lied about it or whatever, and then like he didn't really have his endorsement, and they got sued and got into all sorts of trouble. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Doug Roccaforte is or Doug Rockafort or whatever. Yeah. So I see your cab online. Yeah, about $500 is what I expected. I mean, they're well-made things, but it's just like,
oh yeah,
this company shouldn't even exist.
It's worth the money we're asking, but the guy was hoping to get into a professional Stratocaster, a pro.
Yeah,
and there was no way we could give him. We couldn't give. If he sold it outright, he might be able to get that kind of money because that's what we're looking to get for it.
Yeah,
and a cabinet.
Yeah.
Then he goes. I said, here's something that I just can't believe customers do. So the guy I told you about that didn't want to take a cabinet home.
Yeah.
He brings in two guitars, Orange Crush DLX, 35 DLX, which is like 400 years old right now.
I mean, just put it in the garbage.
Yeah, and this 15 cab. And
I go, it's bad, by the way, just because it's like nobody really wants to buy that used.
I opened it up, and my allergies instantly went. Oh God, my eyes were burning. There's enough dust on that guitar to kill a man, and I'm like, I'm going to have to charge you for a setup. I'm going to have to charge you for strings. I'm going to have to charge you to clean it. I said, I don't know. Yeah, it was. The guy was like, I don't care how much money. I was like $20. I sold it the very next day, by the way. Yeah. I cleaned it up. I personally cleaned it up. I did everything. And a guy called in. He was like, I want it. He's gonna take the neck off and put the neck back on. He's gonna fix it up. And I'm like, okay, because we could sell it super cheap because I gave him crap. And the same with his. He gave me a GNX pedal, a GNX 300. Now, when was the last time you saw a Digitech GNX 300? All right, this is G505 timeframe territory, right? And he goes, I don't care. And it was another guitar. But anyway, I'm like, why would you bring in, one person brought in a guitar and didn't have any strings on it?
Because they don't. I mean, all right. So let me put you in the mind of somebody who's doing that.
Yeah.
I have this old guitar. I want this new guitar. This old guitar needs strings, but I'm too freaking lazy to put them on there. And I know they'll just do it for me, so I'll just take it in. Or this guitar's jacked up, but I don't have the time or the patience, the effort, or the finances to have it fixed and sell it outright, so I'll just take it to Guitar Center. Or I bought this on Reverb, and I got it, and it's junk, and I can't send it to the guy, or send it back to the guy on Reverb, so I'll just take it to Guitar Center and take what I can get.
Right.
Honestly, that's probably your three most popular scenarios for like getting a guitar that's super janky when they bring it in.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's just, like, would you trade in a car with like dog crap on the floor?
Jim, yes. I have worked at car dealerships. Yes, that stuff happens. God. We opened a car one time and the trunk was filled with leaves. Leaves. I neither the time nor the effort to make this up. We opened it up and it was leaves. And it wasn't like leaves from last fall. It was leaves from like fall 5 years ago. And I'm going, how did this happen? How did this actually happen? Did somebody leave the trunk open and all these leaves got in here? because it would have been like amazing. I mean, this was like somebody took a rake and a shovel and like a snow shovel
And just
snow shoveled the leaves into their trunk so they could get them out of somewhere. And then later on forgot to take them out of the trunk because they never used it. And then guess what? 5 years later, they traded in and it ends up on a wholesaler's lot. And that's the end of that. So, yes, you're absolutely right. People do this with cars. They do it with houses. I
guess it doesn't bother me when I say to somebody, well, I'm going to have to take a little off because we got to spend some time with it because I got to spend 25 minutes, 30 minutes cleaning it up. And we got to pull the strings out. We got to put the strings on. And then the one guy, I was changing the strings on that one that I told you about that was really dusty. And I'm cleaning it, changing the strings. And the guy calls and he goes, I want these particular strings on it. And I said,
really?
Okay. I said, but I'm going to have to charge you for those. And he goes, okay, I don't care. Charge me for them. I had to pull the strings. I charged him for the strings I put on. I cut those off. I put the strings he wanted on. He paid for both sets of strings.
He should.
Yeah. I mean, I have a problem with it, but it was my time that I got a problem with. I'm like, bro, pal.
No, I'm just thinking about the madness of some of this stuff because, like, I seen some things. I've seen some things happen.
Stuff.
Yeah, and you cannot unsee what I have seen.
Oh man, I've told you, there has been stuff I look at it and I go, "What the holy heck?"
I mean, things where obviously animals have lived in the back. Like
wait. We had one pair of guys bring it in. I don't want to describe the people, but two guys bring in this guitar. Right? I don't know how much you give us for it. I open it up and I'm like, is there bog water in there? That thing smelled so much like a bong. I mean, it was like
that's not legal in Virginia Beach, is it?
No, it's not legal yet. I mean, they could do it.
I mean, here in Chicago, that's probably going to be the norm from now on.
Well, Bernie Sanders gets in office, it'll be legal everywhere, so that's cool. So
anyway,
allegedly, and I'm all for it.
Allegedly.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I don't care.
For him.
Yeah, I don't care. I but I mean, it was like, oh God. I mean, I just stood there. Every time I opened it, I was like, oh, I was looking for bog water in the guitar.
Jim, I know what this reminds me of.
No way it smells like this unless they used it for a bog.
This reminds me of that stupid, awful Ibanez I had.
Oh, yeah.
Where I opened it and someone's couch was inside.
Yeah. First we thought it was packing materials.
No, it was like clearly somebody had gutted their furniture and like thrown it in the gig bag. I hope that guy is listening to our show. I hope he's found me on Reverb and like hunted me down and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I dare you to send me a message at this time.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about my story with your guitar. Whoa.
What's incredible is every one of these guitars that came in that needed like super, super care, they all went that.
Oh yeah. Always.
Because somebody's always looking for a break. And when somebody can come in and get a guitar for $60 or $70, they're going to buy it.
Yeah. I mean, how often do you sell guitars out of your store that are under $100 used?
Not very often.
Yeah, I was going to say it's usually around $200, right?
Yeah. Most of the used stuff is $200 or up. And so it's surprising to see when somebody brings in something that usually you can't take it because we can't, like, we'll take a credit card or something light and try to stick it underneath the bridge. And if the bridge is lifting enough that I can put something small under it, I can't take it in. Or if the,
what you're talking about with a Strat?
No, a guitar, acoustic.
Oh, I was going to say.
No, with a Strat. Yeah, no.
I was going to be like, you guys won't take a floating bridge? Like
No.
Like, wait, what?
No, it's an acoustic.
Yeah.
Oh no, we probably have maybe 2 or 3 guitars that are under $100 that are electric, but they're usually those. Somebody will bring in a Geo, or they'll bring in a Mitchell, or they'll bring in a
the guitar they wasted money on.
The bullet that comes out of a guitar pack.
Yeah,
they're like trying to sell the parts off. It's like,
all right. So you got some stuff going on with your board. Let's talk.
Yeah, let's talk about my board. So I played around tonight. I sat down with it for the first time. I really, really played around with the dark side. And I've finally found a fuzz I kind of like. I actually like this fuzz, which is weird. And I know you're going to tell me because it's not a real fuzz or something. But
No.
I like it. I like the fuzz on it.
It's a muff.
Yeah, that's weird. It's a muff. Yeah, because I always like my muff as well. So I guess.
Well, I bought you the one, and I'm like, yeah, he's going to like it. Like, duh.
Yep. And I keep it in the middle. I don't know what that means. It's not flat. It's not.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
There's three. There's three settings.
Tone control.
No, there's three settings. There's a little toggle switch. It's flat, middle, and I guess normal, and then scoop. So
yeah, so
little
it's
toggle
different.
Switch.
Basically, they're supposed to emulate the different eras of muff that he used.
Right.
Because he's used all of them.
I was using the flanger rotary side of the other thing, which I really like. I don't put a lot in there, but adding a little bit of that really adds to the what's the word I want? The tonal variety that I get from it just by adding a little bit, which I didn't think I would like. I didn't think I would like a flanger rotary, but it does well. It does well. So then the carbon copy, obviously, I like the carbon copy. So guess what else I added? I added a cavern still. I'm getting silly.
I'm laughing because I told you should buy that over the.
I put them both in there. Hold on, it gets worse.
Okay, wait a minute. Is this your Pedal Train Nano?
Yeah. So I decided what I'm going to do is do a pedal train. Holy crap! I think I'm going to just buy a Voodoo Lab one or whatever.
Yeah.
And when you get down here, I am gonna make the most ridiculous pedal board ever known to man. I mean,
no.
As far as no, yeah, it won't be. But I want to train I want to train out like 30 pedals or some ridiculous thing like that. So I added a Keeley compressor.
The Keeley compressor is pretty good. So what's happened is Jim has gotten really into the dark side, and he's like, I got to buy everything Keeley.
No, I did look at the D&M drive. I could order a D&M drive.
No.
Because I'm going to get the 50.
At least one side of that drive is going to be too pretentious for you, Jim.
Exactly. And it's going to be the M drive.
Probably.
It's going to be the M side because I'm all right with the D side, but the M side is not my thing.
I'm having a good time tonight, man. Let me tell you. I'm having a good time.
It's my son's 20th. The twins.
Yeah, I saw that.
My son's 20th birthday today. Yeah.
Happy birthday, twins.
Yep. Happy birthday, boys.
Yeah. Not that they listen, but
no.
Why would they be interested in what their old man does?
They don't care.
I know my kids aren't.
So, to add insult to injury, when you get here, I might have a new baby.
What?
Yep. She would weigh about 3 pounds, and her name would be Rosie or Sophie. Rosie has blue eyes, and she's kind of brindle in color with longer hair, and Sophie is brindle but shorter hair with brown eyes.
Okay, so
it's a miniature dachshund.
I was going to say furry babies.
Yes,
I'm going to get bit a lot because you're going to get dachshunds, and they like to bite.
No, they don't. I've never had
the snippy little dog. I like dachshunds, so but they can be pretty snippy. Depends.
Well, I don't think by the time you get here, she won't be really like I'm the king of the house yet.
No, she'll probably still be peeing on the floor.
Yeah, she'll still be pissing on the. Instead of me, I'll take her out for a walk, 20 minutes around the block, come back in, and then she'll piss on the floor.
Yep, that's how
what
works.
They do. That's what they
works. Do. That's how it works.
I don't know why. Every dog I've had has done that to me.
Every time.
Yep.
It's not a unique experience, Jim. That happens to everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, man. So there's been some listener.
So I'm looking for another ridiculous pedalist ad.
Oh,
I'm getting the 50/50.
You need a ring mod.
A ring modulator.
That's the most ridiculous pedal you could possibly put on there. You'll never turn it on. It'll be awesome.
Yeah. So now I've got 2 wah pedals. All right.
Sounds to me
One's
like
on
you need a
mid-midi.
good phaser. You need a phase 90 or a phase 95.
Oh yeah, a phase 90 script.
Or a phase 95, the same thing.
Yeah.
Or even if you get like a used EVH phaser, those are
The EVH.
The EVH one is like a phase 90 script logo and the other one in the same box, but it's a bigger box.
Yeah, I'm kind of yeah, that's exactly right. I'm kind of waiting for somebody to get like I said, to bring one in and then go, hey, would you take? Yeah.
Well, the 50/50, I can just go ahead and tell people what the 50/50 is going to go for. So the 50/50 is going to go for the train wreck, the Ethos TWE1, which is their train wreck in a box, and then I think the I didn't have the heart last week when Danny was going on about Vertex effects to be like, hey man, I got an Ethos and I live like an hour from you. We should get together. I'll show you the Ethos because it's going to change your life. But because he uses the Dumble in a box from Vertex, and he also uses the train wreck from Vertex. So I'm going to get the Ethos version of that, or the custom tones version of that, and then I need so that you're going to half pay for that. Basically, is what's going to happen. I'm going to have to come up with that or $100, or whatever it ends up being. I think they're 100. I think they're 200 something. So I have to make up the difference, but plus shipping and all that.
Right.
And the other item I need is a delay reverb, and I need a Univibe, 3 pedals. But the more expensive thing, which I'm learning about, and learning all sorts of fun stuff about because I didn't really know much about them before, is the direct box. And direct boxes, you can go cheap. You can get like a Behringer direct box and it'll do you fine. You can get passive. You can get active. Now, for using passive pickups, you need an active direct box. That's what most people say, right? Like that's the general rule of thumb. For active pickups, you want a passive direct box. I would assume, and this is something I'm still learning about, that a pedal board would go into an active direct box because it's passive output, right? It's the same idea as what comes out of your guitar's pickups. If anybody on the show or anybody on our show's audience knows differently, please let me know. I don't want to make a mistake on this. But I found a pretty cool active direct box on Sweetwater. It is a Neve active direct box, and it's like $260. I mean, it's not super expensive, and it has a really good reputation already. The other option, of course, is I go and I get who's the company that makes all the direct boxes? A Radial, like a J45 or whatever, which is basically the industry standard right now. But the reason I need a direct box is because even though the Ethos has an emulated line out, it is pedal level and not line level for the PA. So I'm going to have to attenuate that. I might even try my hand at making my own direct box, which I could do pretty easily. But there's transformers involved, which makes that problematic. But ideally, at the end of the day, I'll have a direct box. It'll be mounted underneath my board. I'll have my delay reverb, which will be literally turned on and left, and just to add some ambience. And then I will have my Univibe out front, and I will have my train wreck doing most of the work. And that'll be that. And my pedal board will be done. I'd like to start gigging with this pedal board with Old Stumpy even. And I think we're going to use that with the Mark V, and that's going to be the thing. So Kemper or Mark V, depending on which gig and what our requirements are. If I have to go direct and all those different things, that changes things significantly. But just to be able to play guitar, and I'll break out my E609, which at GearFest I'm hoping to get an E906, so that I can get the nicer sounding one. Because I've heard some A/B comparisons now where the E906 actually does sound significantly better than the E609. So,
right.
Oh, that's a mouthful, and it's a lot of gear jargon. I met some people in the class the other day, and I was telling them, like, this is not, our show is we talk about gear a lot, but it's not a gear podcast. Nope. But it is a gear podcast because, let's face it, guitar players are obsessed with what they're playing with.
Yeah. I, you know, honestly, I don't have any gear I want right now. But I gotta say that when I added that, uh, to my pedal board, I'm enjoying it. You know,
Well, I
but
mean,
here's
pedal boards are like crack, man. You
yeah.
get started, and it's easy not to stop.
So last night, a woman comes in and she's buying a cajon. You know, the cajon. So it's a little one. It's only like the size of like an iPhone, only squared off, obviously, a little bit bigger, like 2 iPhones tall, right? Or wide, I should say, but the same height as an iPhone. So it's a little thing. She says, "Oh, it's for this." I said, "Do you want to get the coverage?" And she said, "Yes." And I was like, "Nobody would buy coverage on that." She goes, "It's for this little guy." She had a little kid who's still drooling. You know, I mean, that's how little he is, right? He's a cute little bugger. And he's getting a cajon from mom. And because he's got rhythm. And she's like, I want to, I want him to be musical.
She's fostering.
I play bass and dad plays guitar and he's going to play, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. I think it's great. And so what's funnier though is that when she says this, the baby's looking up and he's reaching out. I said, I hand it down to him. I said, say goodbye to all the money you've ever had, all the money you will ever make, because this begins your journey of gear.
Oh, that's so good.
The baby smiles and he laughs at me. And it was so adorable. It was like, oh,
it's your hopes and dreams goodbye.
Yep, it was so funny.
You just committed to a life of non-prosperity.
Yep. I thought it was so funny. I just thought, oh my
God. Our listeners have topics for us, and if you have topics, please don't just share them in the Facebook group. We're trying to come up with a method that's going to keep us organized, so that we can get through all these topics. Because there's been a couple that have gone by the wayside I know about, but somebody brought it up in the group. If you're in the Patreon group, you're going to get first pick for sure. Send your topics to questions@practicalguitars.com. I will start making sure that gets said like multiple times in the episode, so questions@practicalguitars.com. So email your topics there, and then Jim and I will take action on them. Or you can message the Facebook page,
right,
and that will make sure that Jim and I both see it, so that we'll remember. So somebody in the group asked about we should make it a regular show topic to talk about the future of electric guitar. And I agree. It should be a regular show topic, because I think the future of electric guitar is happening right now. It's happening around us. We're seeing things change in not so subtle ways. Good example, in the Everything Guitar group today, and this is going to be the funny anecdote that drives the story. Someone posted a video, or somebody posted a thread that was basically like, here's my Boomer hate machine, which was like his Strandberg electric guitar, right? Cut off headstock, ugly body. And I'm smiling because I just think it's hilarious that somebody's going to like try to pick on the Boomers. At this point, it's just a non-issue for me. But I don't try to judge people based on their social classes. That's why I'm doing a podcast with a guy that's like 20 years older than me. Right. Probably more than that. But that's my point, right? Like, so generational gap's not a big issue to me. But I did find it funny because I was like, here you are. I go through this thread, and there's a lot of people like sharing their headless pics, and like it's all cool until the one Boomer gets really ticked off, and he starts saying, you guys are a bunch of little wimps, and you're in your safe space and all this horse crap. It's like, first off,
oh my God.
For me, like, I have no safe space, right? Like, I have a space where I can defend myself. That's my safe space. All right. Yeah. That's how this works. I'm a stand your ground guy. And I'm just laughing because I'm reading through this thread and I'm just rolling through it. And I'm like, really? You're going to go off the deep end over this? With the amount of times that I see people complaining about millennials, you're going to go off the deep end about somebody saying this is my Boomer hate machine. or whatever the thread thing was. I responded twice. The first thing I said was, I really like headless guitars. Second thing I said was, wow, dude, you definitely don't realize who's going to pay your Social Security checks and who's going to be taking care of you when you're in a home. And, like, this is revenge is a dish best served cold kind of deal. But then the other side of it, I'm like, I just like kind of zoned out. Anyway, I got some responses on that thread, and when I went to go read them, the thread had been deleted. and in everything guitar, all day today, people have been post your headless guitars. Because it's totally like a knock at that dude who got that thread deleted because he was being abusive, vulgar, defamatory, etc.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, now I also noticed that they added a rule to their thing. It's like, don't talk about socio-political topics or something. And I'm like, really? I mean, come on, guys. Like, we're all adults. We should be able to get along. If you really can't stand the fact that, your generation has hated another generation so much that there's an entire like field of study devoted to how to deal with this other generation. I mean, I work in, so here's my perspective on why this thread gets deleted, and I'll leave the politics alone. This is why we don't talk about boomers on the show. It's why we don't go through this whole shenanigans. Everyone knows that the generation prior hates the generation past them and the generation past that generation. Right?
Absolutely. That's just a given. That is a given.
The only difference between the baby boomer generation and the millennial generation today and that whole conflict versus conflicts of other generations, like the generation prior to baby boomers and the Gen Xers, the only real disjoin there is that the baby boomers is such a large generation to market to that I work for an association. We sell education. That's like essentially what we sell, right? And we have entire courses of study that I've seen that are devoted to how to deal with millennials in the workplace. Yeah. I do not recall ever seeing anything like that about Generation X. I do not see anything about that with post-millennials. It is entirely the baby boomers hating their kids, right? That's what this boils down. It's like, I'm tired of them living at home and all this stuff. And it's like, wait, you guys do realize you created our generation, right? Like, not like created, but like you made the social conditions that created us too. Like, everybody gets a trophy. Yeah. I mean, that's why there are so many screwed up millennials. So yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. So I was not one of those helicopter parents, and I brought my kids up differently, but, and my kids knew that, a trophy that everybody gets is a BS trophy. I mean, and most kids do.
We sat down with our kids, and we explained to them early on, you're not special. Right. And that was like a terrifying thing when I tell other parents. I'm like, I told my kids they weren't special. But then I told them, I said, you can do special things, but people aren't special. There's a lot of people out there. We're all the same.
Yeah. I was at a job interview on Friday, and when I sat down and talked to the guy, I specifically said, because we were talking about sharing information, how some people will hold information because knowledge is power, so to speak.
Exactly. I have somebody at my work that does that right now.
Yep. That's jerk move. And I said to him, I was always taught, that's right. I was always taught to share your information because you always want to train your replacement, and no one is irreplaceable. So don't think that because you think you know all this stuff, you're the only one that knows it. You're not. You're not the only one. And so that's why we're actually not all special. Okay.
Right.
Just saying.
So along with the boomer conversation,
yes.
Headless guitars are a big thing right now, and you could see this climate changing for like modern guitars, right? And like that's been a thing for a while. Steinberger, a boomer, designed the headless guitar, like the first iterations of them, right? That were really popular. Yeah. And I want to point out something. Steinberger went out of business because they were so popular they couldn't keep up with demand. And they ended up selling out to Gibson, and Gibson ran the company into the ground.
That's right. It wasn't because they weren't popular.
No, it was actually the opposite. It was like the DeLorean problem, except without the drug investment. Which actually in federal court, they proved he didn't know about. John DeLorean was actually not investing money in drug dealers. Surprise, surprise. Or at least he didn't think he was. So a whole other component conversation about all that, is looming. But anyway, somebody in the group this week posted a very relevant video and project to this this topic, which is we obviously know headless guitars are taking off. Like that's a sign of the times, right? People are willing to adapt to modern designs. So now other companies are taking they're taking cues from this, and they're like, well, what can we do that indicates modern design, and how can we rethink the instrument? Right. And the thing that I want to talk about, and Jim, you probably know where I'm going with this, is the sub-fretboard system project. Now,
oh, good Lord, yeah.
When I say that random mouthpiece thing that I just said, the sub-fretboard system project, this video was shared with us by Nick Bongers. You can find out more at subfretboard.com. So apparently it's a South American thing. I don't know if it's like from Mexico or beyond, but it's this whole idea. And I know Mexico is obviously not South American, but I believe parts of it are. But anyway, it's a sub-fretboard system project. And this whole idea is like you have a metal rod, and it's not a rod, but it's like a plate, right? That runs down underneath the fretboard and runs all the way into the body of the guitar where the pickups sit. And everything that you use on the guitar basically gets mounted to this metal plate. Now, this means that basically any guitar you have can't really be retrofitted. It would have to be designed with the sub-fretboard system project in mind. And it's cool because the pictures they're showing like have these little like pieces of wood that go between the frets. And so you could use like rosewood on some frets and maple on others and make cool, clever designs. And I'm sure you could get inlaid pieces of wood to put in between the frets. Now, here's where the issues start. The frets are actually also attached to this piece of metal. They stick up, looks like a 0.5 centimeter, and then the fret extends beyond that. So obviously we know that this would have to be a company making these guitars, right? Which is fine. And they would have to be, very specific thing. Now, here's where the issue is. So I started looking into it. The material they have selected is 7075 aluminum. Okay. Now, the frets are one piece. They're not attached to this. They're literally made out of aluminum. If you don't know anything about metallurgy, aluminum is really soft.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I went onto their YouTube video for this, and I looked in the comments, and there were a couple of people like, yeah, actually the guitar sounds pretty cool because they have a prototype that they're showing in the video, and they're kind of doing a Kickstarter. They're looking to get some investment money. And I laughed, and I put in the comments, and I said, you're really seriously considering making this out of aluminum. I mean, I get the weight part of it, but you can't really make frets out of aluminum. That's not going to last more than a year or two with a heavy-handed player. And they're like, well, it'll last. They basically in the video comments, they suggest that it should survive like three or four fret crown polishes and levels. And I'm going, crown level and polish 3 times. I mean, this guitar wouldn't last a year with me. I mean, honestly, like you're out of your mind. And I think they're just kind of thinking, well, you'll just pull the piece of aluminum out and throw it away and then put a new one on. And I'm going, no one's going to do that. Like, you don't know musicians. We don't want to tamper with things. We want things to be exactly the same way that they always were. It's what we've talked to on this show is the Angus Young effect. Okay. If you change the pot, we're going to know. Okay. If you change the amount of dust on our strings, we will probably be able to point that out to you. So I think if they did this with stainless or with like some sort of replaceable fret, that would be a better option. I'm going to the YouTube video now. I'm hoping it will not play on the podcast because I want to be able to see the comments. So as I scroll down here, somebody asked, is there one made with stainless steel frets? And regarding your doubts about the wear of frets, the material has been chosen is Zicrol, which is a name for that type of aluminum.
Yeah.
And they said it'll survive 3 or 4 fret levelings. The wood has more than 5 millimeter, which allows for more levelings with this. And this is not enough. You can change the piece. So in other words, you can make the fretboard thinner, which seems absolutely ludicrous to me. To get
to
more
make the frets higher. Yeah.
You're out of your mind.
Yeah.
Like, that is not the way that a guitar works or should work.
You know who's building this? An engineer. You know who's not building this? A guitar player. That's what's going on here.
And they did respond to me. I wasn't going to read it, but I am going to read it. And this is why I laugh. Because Zicrol is an aeronautical alloy that in this case is strong enough for the entire life of a professional musician. This material is not as you're supposing. I have heard people say this about nickel frets. I can flatten nickel frets in a year.
Yeah.
I play 4 to 6 hours per day, okay? And I have a heavy hand, and I play with bigger gauge strings. That guitar with aluminum frets, I don't care if it's aircraft grade aluminum, it's not hard enough to sustain me, period. Right, this guitar will last no more, at max, 3 to 4 years, period. I don't care what kind of treatment you're doing to the aluminum. There's no way in hell.
Exactly.
It's aluminum. It's still aluminum. And aluminum has a certain hardness. You would have to make it out of what do they call it? Like titanium. I think even titanium's softer. Or what's the other material? My wedding ring is made out of it. Tungsten. But see, tungsten is so hard that it's brittle. You couldn't shave it down. Like you couldn't reshape it. And the only thing harder than tungsten I can think of is diamond. So they should have built this out of stainless, period. It should be stainless. Yeah. That means the metal part, because like it's heavy. Right, I get it. They don't want to make it out of stainless because stainless is heavy. Make it as thin as you can. That's all you can do. Then maybe this will work. I will say this. I was really impressed with the guitar and the clips, but it kind of struck me as the speaker sounds best right before it's about to blow up kind of thing. It had a very even response. And it had good temperament. Like it sounded like it was very in tune, and it sounded like it had a lot of sustain. But again, you'd have to have major manufacturers eventually buy into this idea, which I don't think is going to happen. This is not a cost-effective product. If you've ever had anything milled, you'll know immediately that milling anything is expensive, because it takes hours. I mean, even with a CNC machine, to make one of these would probably the piece before you even like make the frets out of it would probably take, I would say, about an hour a piece on CNC, because it will have to do a lot of fine motor cuts to make this happen. Not to mention that your normal 1980s, 1990s CNC apparatus is not going to be sufficient to do this. And if you've never worked in manufacturing, not every manufacturer on earth has a brand new CNC machine in their operation center. So that's like a whole thing. A lot of the CNC equipment that gets used to make, the stuff you see every day is 20 years old. I mean, or 30 years old. CNC's been around for a long time now, folks. And most materials that are machined out of CNC stuff don't require super fine stuff like musical equipment does. Or musical instruments, really, not so much equipment itself. I think it's a cool idea. I just don't think this is the future of electric guitar. I'll be completely brutally honest with you.
No.
It's a cool concept. I could certainly see some of the elements of this getting borrowed by some other manufacturer later at a licensing cost. Yep. That would certainly give nod to this. Like I could see somebody doing this and putting actual frets in it and just making sure the frets make contact with the metal, or even epoxying the frets to the metal, so that there's good contact there. and then running a metal plate underneath your pickups.
Yep.
So it all connects to a single piece. But I don't think this idea of like milling it all out of one piece of metal is just realistic at all.
No.
And if you made it out of stainless, it wouldn't matter. You could do this all day long. The problem is the guitar would always be $3,000.
Yeah, exactly. And so, what's the point of it? Just get a decent fretboard and either nickel frets or whatever that you like the first time. Just saying.
I think that the value of this would be that you would have a $3,500 or a $3,000 guitar, like fancy guitar, right? That would be consistently perfect.
Yep.
And repeatable. And it would not be one of these situations where like some of them are duds. That's the problem with Gibson is like they make $3,500 guitars that are, some of them are spectacular and some of them are duds. And the duds sit and the spectacular ones go right out. And I could certainly see this being that kind of problem solver, right?
Yep.
But again, there's always going to be your purists so like, no, I want a guitar made out of wood. And so I don't think this would be the kiss of death. And I think for companies like Fender, Gibson that have that heritage, they're not going to adopt this.
No.
They're never going to look at this as the future of electric guitar. They're going to look at this as a gimmick.
Right.
And so will guitar players. Because one thing we know is that if Fender and Gibson aren't willing to adopt it, or one of their sub brands isn't willing to adopt it, then forget it. It's never going to last. It's never going to take off.
Right.
Which leads me to another thing. So on the topic of headless guitars for Strandberg, Jeff and I were talking today. We figure Kiesel, ESP Ltd, not Kiesel, ESP Ltd, Schecter, Ibanez, or somebody like that is going to come out with a headless guitar.
Yeah, I was surprised not to see
Summer NAMM. At Summer NAMM. I have thrown my lot in. I think Ibanez will be the first.
Yeah.
I would not shock me to see Ibanez and Schecter do the same thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Schecter.
Because I think Ibanez and Schecter are directly competing with one another.
Yeah.
I have some observations of both of those brands as well, or all three of those brands really. But I think Ibanez is closest. We've talked about this on the show before. I think headless guitars are more of have a more broad future in electric guitar because of the convenience. It has a lot to do with the fact that us millennials, us not boomers, are not as concerned with how things look, which we are concerned with how things look. It's kind of a misnomer, but the idea that like we don't really care where the guitar comes from, as long as it does the job it does really well. The brand isn't important to us. I think the headstock is a big part of branding. It's a part of the look, but if it's done right and executed well like Strandberg does, I think it has an iconic shape, and I think people are more in tune with that idea, especially my generation.
Yeah.
These guitars aren't being designed to be sold to people above 40. I mean, they just aren't. I know that's kind of strange for people to understand.
Right.
And I think that's part of the reason why I'm nostalgic for them. So, like, I'm nostalgic. That's part of the reason why I like headless instruments. I'm not even going to lie. There are obviously the benefits and stuff to it, but the idea that, like, I always saw Strandbergs in movies like Bill and Ted and all that and stuff, and I was like, or not Strandbergs, but Steinbergers. And I was like, I always wanted one. So I actually bought a Steinberger Spirit a while back, and it was garbage. Worst guitar I've ever owned, without a doubt. But it filled its purpose. Like I could take it and stick it in my desk at work.
Yeah.
Which is what I bought it for. And so when I found out, I bought that, and I found out Kiesel, well, actually Carvin at the time was doing the Alan Holdsworth model. I lusted after one of those for a really long time. And I couldn't bring myself to buy one. And then I saw that Kiesel, like they changed to Kiesel, and then I was investigating their website, and I was like, oh, metal guitars, big deal. And then one day I saw that they were doing metal headless guitars, and I went, okay, now I'm interested.
Right.
I'd seen Strandberg on YouTube, and I was like, yeah, these guitars are cool. They're probably out of the realm of affordability. At the time, they were a small builder. They were $3,500 and up. Now they're in the $1,000 range, but that's between 1,000 and 2,000. But the funny thing is, you're going to buy a $1,000 Cort, which we've talked about that on the show before. But I think if Ibanez does it, I think you're going to see an $800 or $900 price tag attached. It's going to be like an iron label type guitar. So it's going to be nice bridge, probably their own proprietary bridge, which would be the reason why they didn't come out with these at Winter NAMM, is they're probably working on machining parts. It's going to have, basically all the features the other guys have got. They're all looking at Kiesel right now, which is pretty crazy. Kiesel used to be the one that looked at them. And so they're going to try to do what Kiesel's doing. Because I think even over Strandberg right now, I think Kiesel is probably the leader in the headless stuff. There's a love-or-hate thing with Strandberg. A lot more than I feel like there's a love-or-hate thing with Kiesel. Unless you bought one and gotten burned by Jeff Kiesel. Right. Which, that'll be the way we close the show out, because there's been some Kiesel news, and it's hilarious. I mean, it is absolutely. I wish we could have talked about it last week, because it is.
I know
it's dynamite stuff. I mean,
doesn't get any better.
So, I think we all be watching. If it doesn't happen at Summer NAMM, it'll be Winter NAMM or Summer NAMM next year. But within the next 2 years, major manufacturers are going to be doing headless guitars. It's gonna happen. It's inevitable. I am really shocked it hasn't happened already. When Ibanez came out with the Iron Label series, that was basically Ibanez saying, "Look, we can do what Kiesel does." And then Schecter's done their own iterations on it. Now, observations on these three brands that we just talked about: Ibanez, Schecter, and LTD ESP. ESP LTD, which is the parent company. ESP.
ESP is the.
That's what I thought. Okay, so ESP. So I have some aesthetic issues with each of these brands. Ibanez less so than the other two, but my aesthetic issues with Schecter. What the hell are you doing with your inlays? What are you doing? Have anybody looked at the inlays on Schecters?
On Schecters?
I mean, every single guitar has some sort of different weird inlay. I don't want any of them. Give me an option to buy the guitar I want with no inlay. Because I'm sorry, yours are hideous.
Really?
They're hideous.
Are you sure you're speaking about the right one and not LTD?
No. LTD's
you're right.
Fine. Yeah. He's like, oh, yeah, you're right.
Well, this Guitar Research Solo 2 is too bad. It's got block inlays.
Yeah, but okay, so I'm pulling up their thing because I want to talk about it. So the C1, that the one that I'm seeing on their site I'm looking at Sweetwater.
Oh my God.
C1 here, the Evil Twin. Look, it's got Roman numeral inlays. Yeah, I mean, I can't make this up. This is nuts.
Well, remember the one that had the girl in different poses?
Yes.
All the way up that came from the back of a white trash guitar.
The Schecter Damien Platinum 6 has bats. Now, if you remember, PRS did a guitar for Paul Allender of Cradle of Filth.
That's right.
With bats.
Yep.
It was absolutely stupid. And it was who's going to buy this? Unless you're in Cradle of Filth, you don't want this. I'm sure they sold a ton of them, but
I'm sure.
Not to me, and not to many of the people I talk to. And I see a lot of guitars in their line has offset dots, which are okay. They have the tabs. That's another popular one. They've done the electric symbol at the 12th fret on some guitars, which is why? I mean, I honestly dots, trapezoids, or go home. There's no reason to do anything else. Unless you're going for a very specific aesthetic and you're going to do it across the line. I would not, I mean, I cannot tell you how many guitars I'm looking at right now that have Roman numeral inlays on them. What are you thinking? They don't, all right. So you can't even read them unless the guitar's hanging up. They don't even pass Ryan Burke's guitar art test.
Yeah.
I mean, it's oh, well, we can, so we're going to. That's what I get from this. Well, we can, so we're going to. We can do all kinds of weird inlays.
The Ullman Extreme isn't too bad. The pointy thing.
Schecter S1 Exotic Natural Satan. Not Satan, Satin, of course. I made a joke. Anyway, it has these Tree of Life looking inlays on it.
Yeah.
and it just does not fit the guitar. Like, not every guitar needs Tree of Life inlay or like a rose bush or. I think I don't remember who it was. I think it was Warrior Guitars that did The Last Supper as an inlay.
Oh yeah,
The entire length of the neck was The Last Supper, and I just looked at it and I went, "That's the ultimate praise and worship guitar right there." Like, I don't know what else you're gonna play that in. But I think like somebody like Warrior doing that, it's guitar art. They're not intending this thing to be played. But Schecter does it, and it's just trashy. This is like trailer park guitars. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Like, some of them are trashy, and some of them they make to be destined to be in trailer parks. That's basically what it is.
That's pretty much it.
And LTD ESP doesn't do this. I'm not a big fan of all their guitars either, but I mean, like, I look at some of their stuff and I'm like, it totally makes sense. Like, your guitars are cool, you know.
The EC1000 series is a nice set. You know, they do a lot of nice guitars.
So they do. They have a 7-string Viper, which I'm very interested in. I think it's a basswood body though, which pretty much kills it for me. But they do a 7-string Viper, and it's black on black, so it's like ebony with a black body. But the dumb part about it is, it's got an inlay of some sort, and I'm like, you almost had the perfect like black on black thing, and now you put an inlay on it. Why? Why would you put an inlay? You just soiled this guitar. Like, it would have been fine. It would have made sense aesthetically, but now we have to put a dumb inlay on it just because.
Yeah.
Who makes that's
it looks like ESP LTD is going away from the EMGs on a lot of them and going towards putting fluences in.
Yeah, a lot of companies are. That's a kind of a modern thing. Oh, by the way, that 7-string Viper is a baritone.
Yeah.
Like, hold on. 7-string baritone. Who is this guitar for? Is it for bass players? I mean,
I know that's kind of a little specialized.
And actually, this is the one that I think that I was talking about. It does not have an inlay, but I know I've seen another one that was all blacked out. It's only got one pickup.
Yep.
And the funny part is, this is like an $800 guitar under the ESP label, which is fine, I guess. I think they still do make the Viper over at ESP as well.
Yep.
But they're quite expensive to get one. And that's another thing I talked to Jeff about today. It's like, ESP, what is their deal? They have like the LTD line, which is like inexpensive stuff, and then they have the E2 line, which is like moderately priced stuff, like production stuff. And now to get an actual ESP, you got to spend like $4,000. It's crazy. I mean, it's not like people are clamoring to get a $4,000 ESP. That's not happening. So use your brand power. Rebrand the E2 line to ESP. It needs to be. You need to have a production line. I'm sorry. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. So, along with all of this, right? Headless guitar craze, modern guitars, and all that thing. There was another. We were going to make a segue. There was something I said that we'd come back to. Do you remember what it was, Jim? What is it regards to? Like, when did that happen? It was something in the last like 5-10 minutes of the conversation.
You were talking about the Kiesel and the lawsuit.
We're about to end the show.
Yeah,
this is the perfect thing to end on.
Yeah, this is
Jim.
This is a good one.
Have you heard about the Gibson lawsuit against Kiesel?
Have you heard the news? Have you heard the good news?
We're going to start about the easy one, right? The Gibson lawsuit against Kiesel.
This is ridiculous.
Kiesel makes the Mini V or whatever, which is their version of a V-shaped guitar.
Right.
Which we all know that the Flying V was probably the first V-shaped guitar, right? I'm going to pull up their website right now because I want to take a look at the models while we're talking about this. So here's the distinct differences between their V and Gibson's V. And they're pretty significant because we already know Jackson won a lawsuit against Gibson many, many years ago when they created the Jackson V. I don't know if it was a lawsuit, but basically they settled out of court or something, because there was a thing going back and forth between Grover Jackson and them. And one of the things that came up was that their King V was like offset. That one of the horns was shorter than the other, and I don't see the V on their list of guitars here right now. Oh, here it is, Ultra V. Okay. And they're doing a reissue V series guitars, but they're going to add a horn or something. Oh, no, they're still here. Okay, so apparently you can get these with the horn or something, because the picture's messed up on their site. So the lower horn on these is offset. The body is not symmetrical.
Nope.
It would appear that the lower area where your hand would touch the body is actually a slightly different shape than the upper part. Okay. The headstock has staggered tuning machines. They are 3 per side. It is a Kiesel headstock design, and there is a bit of an angle bevel across all of the instrument, like all the way around the edges of the body.
Yep.
The headstock matches the body paint wise. You have your typical Tune-o-matic style bridge with through body strings, but they're straight. They're not in a V. Okay, so flash forward. So Gibson's suing, right? I don't think Gibson's lawsuit's going to go anywhere. I think it's more or less to protect their intellectual property and try to establish dominance.
Right.
They're hoping that by sending a letter that maybe Kiesel would consider being like, hell no, we're not going to do this. Well, little do they know that they're dealing with the biggest jackass in guitar production right now. And Jeff Kiesel is like, no, we're going to keep making these. You can go to hell. We're going to take you to court and we're going to win.
Right.
And I have a feeling Kiesel has enough money in the war chest right now from the sales boom that they've been seeing the last couple of years to actually take them to court and win. Because Gibson is the evil empire and Gibson has got all these frivolous lawsuits flying around. And I have a feeling this is going to go very badly for Gibson.
Right.
And Gibson may fold and say, no, we're not going to take him to court.
Right.
You know, we'll walk away. Or maybe there's a discussion about licensing visas going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing. They shouldn't be licensing this design. This is very much it's a V-style guitar. If you really want to have Gibson own every V-style guitar on earth, yes, this would apply. But because it has enough distinct design differences to stack up against something like, let's say, Randy Rhoads V, I think this is same kind of territory. Now, so I saw the live stream where he took one of these and he chopped the headstock off of it. And was like, now we're going to make a headless version.
Yeah.
And I think they actually are going to make a headless version of this.
Right.
I think that was kind of a nod to the fact that we're so not going to stop making this that we're actually going to make another one.
We're going to make, we're going to make a hold.
Which actually, in his defense, for sales purposes, this is a genius move. Because what's going to happen is everybody's going to look at this and they're going to go, Gibson's going to win. And we're going to have to buy one of these guitars so we can have the lawsuit guitar.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what's going to happen.
Right.
So I think a lot of people are going to jump in and say, I want that weird one-off thing that happened at one time. Now, that's the Gibson lawsuit in a nutshell, right? So Harley Benton makes a guitar. Harley Benton makes many guitars that look like other people's guitars, right?
That's right. That's what they do.
They make a guitar called the what is it? The Doulahan, which is a headless guitar.
Yep.
And it's an inexpensive stainless steel fretted bolt-on headless guitar, and it looks kind of like an Osiris, which is another Kiesel model.
Yep.
So Jeff Kiesel has announced that he's suing Harley Benton.
Yep.
Because they have knocked off his guitar. And honestly, this is where Jeff Kiesel is being Jeff Kiesel to the extreme. Because he's such a used car salesman. Gibson is evil because they're suing us because we have a guitar that's similar to one of your guitars. And Harley Benton is evil because they have a guitar that looks like one of our guitars. Wait, this is like the big fish eating the medium-sized fish, which is also eating the small fish. That's what this is.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, if you had to pick sides in this, I would think that I still kind of am on the side of Kiesel with this, and it's only because this is an obvious knockoff of an Osiris. They did very little, the bevel and all that stuff, and then they put kind of pseudo fake Strandberg hardware on it, which is the only design aesthetic choice that they could probably make given the Chinese parts that are available. Jimmy, are you able to pull up a picture of the Harley Benton dual hand?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because I'd like to get your comments on it.
Looking for the dual hand.
Dullahan. It's DULL.
Oh, yeah, I know. I remember that.
Now, I happen to know that someone in our group is buying one of these lovely guitars. So I'm very, very curious as to how it plays. I've actually been considering buying one as well.
Which one are you, the FT or the AT?
They're all the same. I mean, they have different appointments. The FT, I think, has a flame top.
The AT, I'm looking at that. $366.
The bevel. The AT has the bevel. They're $366. Stainless steel frets, quality bolt-on construction, with a sculpted heel. I don't like the control arrangement, which is I'm told it's like straight out of Strandberg territory. I haven't really compared, but essentially what these guitars is a complete knockoff of the Kiesel like style of headless guitar,
100%.
except with Strandbergish hardware. Do I think there should be a case here? No. I mean, honestly, like if you buy one of these, you're buying it because you can't afford a Kiesel. And Kiesel shouldn't be mad about that. They should be encouraging that.
Right.
Because that gives them something to pine for.
That's right.
Like that makes look, what made Kiesel and Carvin famous was the catalog. Yep. Jim, when you were a kid, did you get the catalog?
Oh yes, I did.
Did you stare at it?
And I'd look at it for.
Was it like Victoria's Secret for today's kids?
Is that what it was exactly
for today's boys?
Seriously.
Oh my gosh. And like that they don't have that status right now, right? Of like getting this catalog that people want to physically look at, stare at, and they cut out the pictures and put them on their wall and stuff.
Oh, you know what's funny? If you look closely at the pictures from the Thomann website, they have a watermark on their pictures. I just noticed that.
They do. They do, which is hilarious because like who's going to steal Harley Benton picture? Yeah, like for real. I mean, I want a Harley Benton picture to put on my website. I mean,
yeah, right. That's exactly what I was about to say.
Rolling my eyes, like seriously, Thomann. Hopefully this is a cool guitar. I think there's definitely a market for it. This is a very inexpensive headless guitar.
Yes, it's inexpensive for a headless guitar. Am I going to buy it just to try it? No freaking way. $366, a little too much money for me to throw at it to go, I don't know.
Is this an indicator of whether you would buy a headless guitar normally, though, if you buy this? I mean, I don't think so. I don't think it is.
No.
I think this is the guitar you get so that you can pine after the other one. Like the Epiphone Les Paul, so you can still look at the Gibson and go, someday.
Right.
And I mean, honestly, most people that have Gibson Les Pauls nowadays who have bought in the last 10 years, and are kind of like younger guitar players, they probably had an Epiphone Les Paul before they got their Gibson.
Yeah.
And if you ask them, I think a lot of people will tell you, I had another guitar and I always pined after a Gibson Les Paul, and so that's what I bought.
I think some of the things we're starting to get into, there's a dangerous thing that's starting to happen, right? And that is that we're starting to see, and when I say dangerous, I mean dangerous for the companies that charge more money for guitars. When you've got guitar channels that are touting the Fireflies so much that the Fireflies you can't even get them in stock. And people are so curious about them. It's not because they really want them. They just, as a musical instrument, they want them because
they're cheap.
They're cheap, and so now they're willing to pay a premium to a person that bought one, who's now reselling it, new in a box.
Are you you work in a guitar store? I'm not going to ask. Are you a? That's a stupid question. How many guys do you see come in there that buy like Squires and Squire Classic vibes who have decent money,
Yep.
but they have like 30 Squires and Squire
Yeah,
Classic vibes.
yeah. There are actually people who will come in and they're looking for the deals. They're looking for the lowest common denominator guitars, just like you're talking about, and a
They
lot
want
of
the one that's special.
that's right. They're looking at the low, not the bullets and the affinities. They're looking at the
But like the lower tier.
right, that Squire Classic vibe,
Right.
and the and especially in the used market. When they come in, they're gone. They're gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
So question, Jim, of these people,
Yep.
what do you think their age range is?
Well, believe it or not, they're close to my age.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
They're usually a little bit more in the know, it seems like.
Yep.
But the weird thing is, people act like when you see a guy that has like 50 cases, right? Because you'll see those pictures. Like, here's my guitar collection. There's like 50 cases sitting there. Don't assume that the guitars inside those 50 cases are like fancy.
Right.
I mean, more often than not, that's the guy that's got like 50 Squires.
Yep.
Okay. Which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that or bad thing, but I tend to be the guy that's like, I'd rather have 5 nice guitars than 50 crappy ones.
Right. Right.
Or I say crappy, but what I really mean is inexpensive guitars. Because I've obviously played some Squires that would give some of my higher end stuff a run for their money. But I'm a player first and foremost and not a collector. So I buy what I use.
Yep.
And I just feel like this is the Harley Benton thing, the explosion with that, the Firefly. We had Guitar Max on the show, who was a great interview, by the way. Go back and listen to that one if you haven't heard it.
Yep.
And there's definitely like a subculture of YouTube guys who are like, and it kind of feeds into that millennial mindset, which is that we don't really care what brand it is as long as it delivers the goods. Brands like Harley Benton fit that bill, right?
Yep.
And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you shouldn't buy Harley Benton. I'm not that person, but I will tell you that Harley Benton is still like not the preferred guitar brand that I would buy. Okay.
Right.
One of these is really attractive to me because I think as a backup guitar, this is not a bad deal.
Right.
But I wouldn't buy this as a primary instrument. And I think the misnomer with the guys that are doing the collecting thing, it's like they use every one of those guitars once a day for, like once a day of a year, but anybody can have a collection of 50 guitars if you're only paying like, peanuts for it.
Right.
So it's just a dichotomy. You gotta balance it.
Right.
And actually the guy with the 50 guitars probably spends less money on gear than you do.
Yeah.
Or like
than I do.
Of our show listeners. Not than you specifically, but I mean like our show listeners.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the sincere sense because they're not going into debt to buy a guitar.
No.
Every guitar they bought is bought free and clear.
What I was about to say is what I spend on Taco Bell in a week, or what I spend on Chick-fil-A, whatever, fast food. They're spending on a guitar in a week, and it's okay. We talked about that earlier, right? I think was it on the show or right before the show? I was saying I could not afford to smoke or drink.
That was right before the show.
Yeah, or do drugs because
we spend it all on gear.
I can't. I spend every bit of that on gear. I could never afford to do those because. So I say, okay, you know what? I don't want to take those things. I'm gonna spend that money that I would spend on beer, on or whatever on that on a gear. So I can afford to buy a flange, the MXR Phase 90 script. At the drop of a hat.
That's why pedals are a dangerous territory, though.
They are.
Because, and that's why there are pedal collectors now, because those guys generally have like 2 or 3 good guitars, but then they have like 50 pedals.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because that's their crack, right?
Right.
And I mean that in the absolute like derogatory sense of the word, because that's your crack. You're addicted to buying the inexpensive thing because it makes you feel really good up front.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make some people mad. Probably some of our Patreon supporters are not gonna be happy when they said this. But the guys I know that have 50 pedals, they don't know how to use but 3 of them because they've never spent any time with the other 47 pedals they have.
That's not calling everybody out. That's just
there's one guy. That's just the people I know. There's one guy in our Patreon group that has a lot of pedals and he knows his stuff. But I know that there's a lot of other dudes I know. He's like, well, this drive does this and this and whatever. And it's like, how do you set it? Well, it just depends on what I'm doing. Like they don't really have any in-depth knowledge of what their stuff does. And that's why that was part of the reason behind the Year of No Gear when we talked about doing that, was to learn to use what I have, because I was doing that. I was on pedal crack. I would buy pedals and not play around with them enough to actually know how to use them.
Yeah.
True story.
Yeah, agreed. I'm currently on the pedal crack thing, coming off of it. But
hopefully.
Well, yeah, you can only. Well, that's the thing, though. You can only have so many. Yeah, you can only have so many. Like, I still don't understand. I understand stacking drive stages. I really do. Stacking drives and stacking. I really do. But you can only stack so many of them. And at some point.
Well, and they start sounding bad after like 2 or 3.
Right. They stop sounding good and start sounding bad because now you've just turned.
You're just clipping.
Right. Exactly.
All the hell. I mean.
But now you're clipping your clips and clipping clips. And it's kind of like going in and getting a haircut until you're finally bald. I mean, at some point you're just bald. Basically. And there's no more hair to clip. I mean,
yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, well, hopefully I don't head that way that fast.
Yeah. We have a similar hairline, by the way.
Yeah, mine's receding as the show goes on. I think Jim's audio quality is causing my hair to fall out. I did want to address that. I've had a couple of people reach out to me about Jim's audio quality right now. He's between computers. His computer that he's using right now is starting to fail on him.
It literally makes
the fan noise is so loud, and it's doing so weird. And I think it's actually magnetically being picked up by the wire for his other microphone. Yep. And so because of that, we've had to switch back to the AT2020, which picks up a lot more room noise.
Yep.
So I've been doing my best to fix it in post. You're just going to bear with us until Jim can get his computer straight.
Hopefully when Dave gets down here, David will help me get this acoustic.
Yeah, Jim will go to work one day and then he'll laugh because he'll come home and I'll put up all the treatment and be like, all right, no more screwing around.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, that actually came up today. I was like, yeah, I was going to sneak in and do that, and not tell him, get up in the in the middle of the night or something and go, how did all this acoustic foam get up here?
I still don't know. I know I can buy those pins that you use to put it up. Yeah, I just got to buy some.
Yeah, Staples, but I don't even know if Staples is open anymore.
We don't have Staples down here. I think.
Yeah,
I think the only place is Lowe's or Home Depot if they have them.
Yeah, you might be able to get some there.
Probably just order them from Amazon. Yeah, have them here.
What was I going to say? There was something else.
I might try an SM57. Might just try an SM.
It might pick your voice up perfectly and not get all the reflection in the room.
Yeah,
because there's a really tight pattern.
Yeah.
I know a lot of podcasters go to really fancy condensers and then end up back at SM57s at the end of the day because that tight pattern. So anyway, I think we've covered a lot of stuff tonight.
Yeah.
I think we guys can give you a break. We can give our listeners a break.
Yeah.
And I say guys, but I mean that in as the human being plural.
Yes.
I'm gonna give you guys a break. We've been just all night long, and I've been a practical guitarist.
I have been a practical guitarist. I've been an impractical.
And tonight we've been
the practical guitarist.
The guitarist?
Yeah,
again. I think I screwed this whole thing up. It's
we
great.
just botched it. Have a nice night, everybody.
Yep.